Right, so get this. We're going deep today, deep into the endocrine system and diabetes mellitus.
Ooh, sounds intense.
It is, but fascinating. Whether you're, cramming for that nursing exam using those CNUR 203 notes, or just a curious soul, and break it all down: pancreas, diabetes, the whole 9 yards.
The pancreas is a real powerhouse, isn't it?
Tell me about it. Impacts so much more than just digestion. Keeps your blood sugar balanced too.
Yeah.
Like the body's conductor, right? Making sure all those hormones are in sync.
That's a great way to put it. It's like a city, the pancreas, with
Right.
different cells working different jobs.
Oh, I like that analogy.
So you've got the SNR cells, those are like the chefs breaking down food.
Right, the digestion part.
Then there's alpha cells, they're like power plants pumping out glucagon, boosting your blood sugar when it's low.
Okay, so those are important when you haven't eaten in a while.
Exactly. And of course, we can't forget the beta cells. They're busy making insulin.
To lower blood sugar after, like, a big meal.
You got it. And lastly, the delta cells.
What do they do?
They're like the city planners, making sure everything runs smoothly, releasing somatostatin.
To keep the insulin and glucagon balanced.
Precisely.
It's amazing how it all works together most of the time. But what about when it doesn't? When that balance is thrown off, that's where diabetes comes in, right?
Yeah, and it's more common than people think. Did you know a Canadian is diagnosed every 3 minutes?
Wow, every 3 minutes.
That's a lot.
It is. And it's really a group of diseases
Yeah.
where insulin production, or how your body uses it, it's just not working right.
So there are different types of diabetes.
There are. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's break them down. Most people have heard of type 1. What exactly is going on there?
Type 1 is like your immune system gets confused. Instead of protecting you, it attacks those beta cells in your pancreas.
Ones that make insulin, right?
Yeah. And without insulin, your body can't use glucose for energy properly.
That's why it's often called an autoimmune disease, right? The body is fighting against itself.
Exactly. And when that happens, sugar builds up in your blood. Hyperglycemia, leading to those classic type 1 symptoms. What were they again? Something, right?
Polyuria.
Right, excessive urination.
Polydipsia, which is excessive thirst.
I always get the third one.
Polyphagia, or excessive hunger.
Oh, right, 3 Ps. But what's actually happening in the body to cause those?
So polyuria, the excessive peeing, it's like your body's trying to flush out all that extra sugar.
Makes sense.
And with all that peeing, you get dehydrated, hence the polydipsia, the excessive thirst. Body's crying out for water.
So it's all connected.
It is. And polyphagia, the excessive hunger, happens because your cells aren't getting the energy they need from glucose, so they're constantly sending out those hunger signals.
So those 3 Ps, they're not just random symptoms, they're signs that something's seriously wrong.
Exactly. And there can be other signs too, like unexplained weight loss, fatigue, even vision changes.
And if it's not treated.
It can lead to diabetic ketoacidosis or
Yeah.
DKA. That's a real medical emergency.
Okay, so early detection is key with type 1. Let's talk about type 2 now. It's way more common, right?
It is. And it's a bit more complex. Often involves lifestyle choices,
Yeah.
genetics. It's like a slow burn.
I've heard insulin resistance plays a big role in type 2.
Yeah, it's like the body's cells have put up a do not disturb sign for glucose.
So the insulin is there, but it can't get the glucose into the cells.
Right. And the pancreas tries to compensate, pumping out even more insulin. But over time, those beta cells just get exhausted. They burn out.
So it's like running your car engine at max speed all the time. Eventually, it's going to give out.
Exactly. But there's more to it than just insulin resistance.
Really? What else is going on?
Well, the liver gets involved, starts producing even more glucose, thinking the body's starving. It's like it's not getting the memo.
And then there's body fat. That plays a role too, right?
Yeah. Adipose tissue releases fatty acids and these things called cytokines. They just make the insulin resistance worse.
It's like a whole chain reaction. So with all these factors, how do you even diagnose type 2? It seems like it would be really tricky.
It can be. It develops slowly, often with subtle signs. That's why those regular checkups are so important.
Speaking of checkups, let's talk about those tests.
Yeah.
How do they figure out if someone has diabetes?
Well, we use a few different tests, like the A1C test.
I've heard of that one. It's like a blood sugar report card, right? Shows your average levels over a few months.
That's a good way to think about it. It gives us a long-term view, not just a snapshot.
What about those other tests, like the fasting blood glucose and random plasma glucose?
Yeah, we use those too. Fasting blood glucose, or FBG, checks your sugar after you haven't eaten for at least 8 hours.
Usually first thing in the morning.
Exactly. And the random plasma glucose, RPG, we can do that anytime, regardless of when you last ate.
So it's like different pieces of the puzzle all helping paint a clearer picture.
That's it.
Okay, So let's say someone is diagnosed. What happens next? How do you manage this whole diabetes thing?
Think of it like a toolbox. We've got different tools for different situations, and what we use depends on the person and their type of diabetes.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So what are some of those essential tools?
For type 2, one of the most powerful tools is lifestyle changes.
Like diet and exercise, right?
Exactly. And losing weight if needed.
But what about the diet itself? Is it all like bland and boring?
Not at all. It's about focusing on nutrient-rich foods that keep your blood sugar stable. Choosing low GI foods.
Glycemic index, right? That measures how fast foods raise your blood sugar.
Yeah, so low GI foods release sugar slowly, like whole grains, fruits, veggies.
So it's more about making smart choices rather than depriving yourself.
Exactly. And portion control is key too.
Got it. And exercise, how does that help?
Oh, exercise is great. It helps your cells use insulin better, lowers blood pressure, helps with weight management.
So many benefits.
There are. Aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate activity a week. Brisk walking, swimming, things like that.
Sounds doable. And what about monitoring blood sugar? That seems pretty important.
It is. It helps people track their progress, see how things are working.
Right, like those at-home blood glucose monitors. How do those work?
They're pretty simple to use. You just prick your finger, put a tiny drop of blood on a test strip, and the monitor gives you a reading.
So you can check your sugar anytime, anywhere.
Pretty much. And there are also continuous glucose monitors, or CGMs. They're even more convenient.
Oh, I've heard of those. They're like those tiny sensors you wear?
Yeah, you wear it on your arm or belly, and it constantly measures your glucose levels.
Wow, technology is amazing. But what about medications?
Medications are definitely part of the toolbox, especially for type 1, where insulin is essential.
Literally life-saving, right?
It is. And there are different ways to take insulin. Injections, insulin pens, or insulin pumps.
I've heard those pumps are pretty cool.
They are. They deliver a continuous low dose of insulin and can also give you a bigger dose before meals.
Like a personalized insulin dispenser.
That's a good way to put it.
And for type 2, are medications always needed?
Not always, especially early on. Lifestyle changes can be enough. But as the condition progresses, medications might be necessary.
Okay, so there are options.
There are. We've got different types of oral medications too, like sulfonylureas. They help your pancreas make more insulin.
And what about those, I think they're called big guanides?
Yeah, like metformin. They reduce how much glucose your liver makes and help your cells use insulin better.
So many different ways to approach it.
There are. And we haven't even talked about those acute complications yet.
Oh, right, the ones that need immediate attention.
Right.
Like DKA, right?
Yes, DKA is a serious one. It's when your body doesn't have enough insulin, so it starts breaking down fat for fuel instead of glucose.
And that creates ketones, right?
Exactly. And those ketones build up in your blood, making it too acidic.
What are the signs of DKA?
Excessive thirst, frequent urination, nausea, vomiting. Sometimes you can even smell it on someone's breath. It's fruity.
That sounds not good.
It's not. It's a real medical emergency.
And what about HHS? How is that different from DKA?
HHS is more common with type 2. You still have very high blood sugar, but without those ketones.
Okay, so both are dangerous, but different.
Yes. And both need immediate treatment.
What kind of treatment?
It involves fluids, insulin, and closely monitoring everything. Electrolytes, vital signs, the whole shebang.
It's a reminder that diabetes is serious.
Before we wrap up, I want to touch on hypoglycemia. That's low blood sugar, right?
Right. It can happen to anyone with diabetes, but especially those taking insulin or certain medications.
Why does it happen?
Lots of reasons. Maybe you took too much insulin, skipped a meal, exercised too hard without adjusting your insulin or food.
Or had some drinks without eating enough.
That too. It's about balancing the insulin, food, and activity levels.
And what does it feel like?
You might feel shaky, sweaty, anxious, dizzy, confused, really hungry, even irritable.
And if it's really bad?
You could have seizures, lose consciousness. It could be serious.
Okay, so what do you do if you think you're experiencing hypoglycemia? You need to get your blood sugar up fast. Eat or drink something with 15 grams of fast-acting glucose.
Like those glucose tablets.
Right.
Or a sugary drink.
Exactly. That'll give you a quick boost.
And if that doesn't work,
If things don't get better in about 15 minutes, or if you lose consciousness, call for help immediately.
it's a good reminder that diabetes requires constant attention. We've covered so much today. The pancreas, different types of diabetes, those acute complications. It's a lot to take in. Okay, so we're back, diving deeper into diabetes mellitus. In part one, we covered the different types, the causes, those immediate challenges.
Right, right.
Now we're shifting gears a bit, looking at the long-term complications, the things that can happen if diabetes isn't managed well over time.
Yeah, it's like those high blood sugar levels, they're kind of sneaky. They can slowly but surely start to damage things.
Damage what exactly?
Blood vessels, nerves, different organs. It's not good.
So like a domino effect. One problem leads to another.
You got it. And we can think of these complications in two main categories, macrovascular and microvascular.
Okay, those sound like big words. Break them down for me.
So macrovascular, that's the big stuff. Think large blood vessels, the ones going to your heart, brain, legs.
Okay, those are important ones.
They are. And microvascular, that's the smaller blood vessels, the ones supplying your eyes, kidneys, nerves.
So big picture versus small picture.
Exactly. And both can cause serious problems.
Let's start with macrovascular. What kinds of problems are we talking about here?
Well, these are the ones that really increase your risk of things like heart disease, stroke, peripheral artery disease.
Okay, those are some serious conditions.
They are. And high blood sugar, it basically speeds up atherosclerosis,
Which is?
the buildup of plaque in the arteries. It's like all that gunk is sticking to the walls of your blood vessels, making them narrower, stiffer.
Not good for blood flow.
Definitely not. And it's like, high cholesterol is already a problem for your arteries, right? High blood sugar just throws fuel on the fire.
Making everything worse.
Exactly. And those narrowed arteries, they can lead to all sorts of trouble. In the heart, you could get chest pain, heart attack, even heart failure. In the brain, it could be a stroke. And in the legs, you've got peripheral artery disease, where you get pain, numbness, bad circulation.
It's scary to think that uncontrolled diabetes could have such a big impact. So what about microvascular complications? What are we looking at there?
Well, with microvascular, it's those smaller blood vessels that get damaged, the ones in your eyes, kidneys, nerves, and it can be just as serious.
Let's talk about diabetic retinopathy. I know diabetes is a leading cause of blindness. What's happening in the eyes exactly?
Imagine your eye like a camera, right? Well, diabetic retinopathy is when the tiny blood vessels in the back of your eye, the ones that help you see, they start to leak fluid.
So it's like your camera lens is getting all blurry.
That's a good way to put it. And over time, it can get worse, making it harder and harder to see.
What are some signs to watch out for?
The tricky thing is, early on, you might not notice anything. That's why regular eye exams are so important. But as it progresses, you might get blurred vision, floaters, dark spots, trouble seeing at night.
Yikes. So it's a silent threat?
It can be.
Okay, what about diabetic nephropathy? How does diabetes affect the kidneys?
So diabetic nephropathy messes with your kidney's ability to, filter waste products from your blood. High blood sugar damages those tiny filters, the nephrons. It's like, imagine your kidneys are a sieve.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
So they're supposed to separate the good stuff from the bad. But with diabetic nephropathy, it's like high blood sugar is clogging up those holes in the sieve, making it harder to filter.
So your kidneys can't do their job as well.
Exactly. And again, early on, there might not be any symptoms.
That's a recurring theme, isn't it?
It is. But eventually you might see protein in your urine, get swelling in your legs, feel super tired, your blood pressure could go up.
Lots of potential problems.
There are. And then there's diabetic neuropathy. That one affects the nerves.
Oh, right. What happens there?
Think of it like a communication breakdown in your nervous system. High blood sugar messes with how your nerves send signals.
So messages get lost or scrambled.
Basically.
Yeah.
And the symptoms depend on which nerves are affected. You could get numbness, tingling, pain, weakness, all sorts of things.
What are some of the common types of neuropathy?
Well, there's peripheral neuropathy. That one affects the nerves in your hands and feet, mostly. You know that feeling when your foot falls asleep?
Yeah, pins and needles.
It can be like that. And then there's autonomic neuropathy.
Autonomic? What's that?
That one affects the nerves that control the stuff you don't think about, like digestion, heart rate, blood pressure.
So even more serious stuff.
It can be.
So with all these potential complications, what can people with diabetes do to protect themselves?
The most important thing is keeping those blood sugar levels under control. And that means lifestyle changes, medications. It's an ongoing thing.
Right. So diet, exercise, all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's the foundation. But also managing blood pressure, cholesterol, those are important too.
Makes sense. And of course, regular checkups.
Absolutely. Regular checkups are key. Eye exams, foot exams, blood pressure checks, kidney function tests, all of it.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It is. But it's all about being proactive. Catching things early.
Because with diabetes, it's not just about the physical stuff, right? It can take a toll mentally and emotionally too.
Oh, absolutely. Living with a chronic condition like diabetes, it's challenging. There's the constant monitoring, the lifestyle changes. It can be overwhelming.
It's like running a marathon. You need endurance, resilience, and a good support system.
That's a great way to put it. And luckily, there are lots of resources out there. Diabetes educators, support groups, online communities, mental health professionals, too.
So people don't have to go it alone.
They don't. There's help out there. And that's important to remember.
And we're back. Part 3 of our diabetes deep dive. We've covered so much ground already, but now I'm curious, what's next? What does the future hold for diabetes care? Any exciting breakthroughs on the horizon?
Oh, absolutely. There's a ton of research going on, always new things in the pipeline, new medications, therapies. It's an exciting time.
I've heard about some of these new medications. They sound pretty revolutionary.
They're pretty cool. One class that's making waves is the GLP-1 receptor agonists. They're kind of a game changer.
GLP-1, what's that all about?
Well, they work by mimicking this natural hormone, GLP-1, and it does a bunch of things. Helps your pancreas release more insulin, slows down how fast your stomach empties, even makes you feel fuller after you eat.
So it's like tackling diabetes from multiple angles.
Exactly.
Sounds pretty amazing. What else is out there?
Oh, there's artificial pancreas systems. Those are really cutting edge.
Artificial pancreas, that sounds almost futuristic.
It kind of is. Basically, they combine continuous glucose monitoring with automated insulin delivery.
So it's a self-regulating system.
Yeah, pretty much. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of managing diabetes.
Wow, that would be life-changing for a lot of people.
It would. Better blood sugar control. Fewer hypoglycemic episodes. It's a big deal.
It is. But beyond the new tech and medications, are there other shifts happening in diabetes care?
Definitely. There's a big push toward personalized care, recognizing that everyone is different and what works for one person might not work for another.
Right, so it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. It's about working closely with the patient, understanding their lifestyle, their goals, and coming up with a plan that works for them.
So more patient empowerment.
Absolutely. Giving people the tools and knowledge to really take charge of their own health.
I love that. But let's zoom out for a second. Diabetes is a huge problem worldwide. Millions of people are affected.
It is. It's a global epidemic.
And that has big implications. Right. Not just for individuals, but for society as a whole.
Oh, for sure. Healthcare costs, lost productivity. It's a big burden.
So how do we tackle this? What can we do?
Well, it's a multi-pronged approach. We need more awareness, education, prevention programs, policies that make healthcare more accessible and affordable, and of course, continued research.
Research is key. What are some of the big questions scientists are still trying to answer about diabetes?
Oh, there's so much we still don't know. What exactly causes different types of diabetes, better ways to treat it, ultimately finding a cure.
The search continues. But in the meantime, what advice would you give to people who want to protect themselves or their loved ones from diabetes?
Well, some things you can't control, like your genes, but lifestyle is huge. Eating healthy, exercising, maintaining a healthy weight, those are all things you can do to lower your risk.
It's about making those healthy choices.
Exactly. And if you already have diabetes, the best advice is to stay informed, get support, and be proactive.
Be your own advocate.
Exactly. Work closely with your healthcare team, stay up to date on the latest treatments, and never lose hope. You can live a full, happy life with diabetes.
That's a great message to end on. This has been a truly fascinating deep dive. We've learned so much about the pancreas, different types of diabetes, complications, new treatments. It's a complex condition, but with knowledge comes power.
Couldn't agree more. The more you know, the better equipped you are to manage diabetes and live a healthy life.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into diabetes mellitus. We hope you found it informative and hopefully even a bit inspiring. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and as always, keep those questions coming.